When starting Super Mario Bros., the player is greeted by this screen. A character facing right, some bricks in the air, and this little short creature inching towards the left. Jumping on it squishes it, rewarding the player with 100 points. Getting a coin will reward the player with 200 points. That's kinda dark. This coin is worth twice as much as this little dude's life. A mushroom is worth 1,000 points, 10 dudes or 5 coins. In Super Mario Bros., each action the designers want the player to take is rewarded with points. Point systems like this are a holdover from the arcades. These sorts of games wouldn't have a defined ending, at least not intentionally. They would just go until the player got a game over. The incentive to keep playing comes from their score, the point values assigned to certain actions. In this case, the score is a way for players to quantify their skill. There is a literal numerical value to indicate how well they're doing. And if you're me playing Tetris, that number is going to be low. But in Super Mario Bros., that's a little different. The objective of Super Mario Bros. Is to save the princess. There is a defined ending. Every action that's rewarded with points is an action that the player would perform anyways in the overall quest to make it to the end of the game. So what's the point of points? A scoring system doesn't really stick out in an 8-bit platformer, but in a realistically rendered surrealist cinematic adventure featuring a nun in 19th century Russia, yeah, the scoring system sticks out a little bit. Indica carries a bold statement, quite possibly the boldest statement a game has made in quite a while. It's a narrative adventure filled with mind-bending traversal puzzles across an increasingly off-putting world. Its story muses on organized religion, faith, morality, and personal agency. And it also has a point system. A pointless point system. Those aren't my words, the game says it right here. Like every other game that features a scoring system, certain actions give the player points. Yet Indica makes a point to make sure that the points have no point. But in context, their lack of meaning is itself meaningful. Or is it? If I may borrow a tagline from a classic comedy show, Indica is... The title character of Indica is a nun, though she's not exactly thrilled to be one. The other sisters in the convent hate her. She's dealing with quite a bit of guilt and personal trauma. Oh yeah, and the devil talks to her all the time. It's complicated. The game is a wild journey through the frigid Russian landscape, one that will transform Indica's life forever. Indica can earn points by performing actions one would expect a devout nun to perform. These points don't have a tangible function. Neither Indica nor the player receives anything for gaining more points, save for a level up that nets her even more pointless points. However, like in Super Mario Bros., it's notable which actions get rewarded with points. Since the player's score is tied to certain actions, those actions are given a deeper meaning. Here's an early example. Indica is told by her superior to fetch a basket of potatoes. Doing so is required to progress the story, but it's also a way for her to earn 30 points. Indica does what she's supposed to do, so she's rewarded for it. Next, she's told to fetch water from a well 5 times to fill a barrel. She carries the pail to the well, fills it, and brings it back over and over and over again. It's tedious, but it's okay. There are 100 points waiting at the end of this ordeal. However, once Indica dumps the 5th pail of water into the barrel, another nun intentionally knocks it over. This chore had no purpose, yet it does have meaning. While they can't use the water Indica fetched, it does reinforce the hierarchy of the convent. Even though points were promised, she never receives them. Indica did what she was supposed to do. Does it really matter if she's rewarded or not? Indica gets sent on a long, arduous errand to deliver a letter. Along the way, she can find artifacts that will teach her about various religious figures. She's rewarded for collecting them. She can find candles as well. Lighting them and saying a prayer will give her even more ultra-shiny points. There's no score leaderboard though, no shop to convert points to goods, it's just an ever-present counter in the corner of the screen. The points have no real purpose, yet they do have meaning. They serve as an incentive for the player to perform certain actions. The points have meaning because the game has given them meaning. Later in the story, Indica will run into Ilya, an escaped convict with a severely injured arm. He pretty much takes her hostage and the two of them make their escape from a shootout. Ilya's arm is probably going to kill him. In fact, it's strange that it hasn't killed him yet. But Ilya has a voice in his own head, a voice telling him that his arm will be healed. We never hear this voice in-game, but it sets up a nice foil duo, the criminal who can hear God and the nun who can hear the devil. In both of their cases, the voices in their heads are given power over them. In Ilya's case, his voice manifests as hope that his arm can be healed. Once they're in the clear, the two of them leave behind items that they don't need. One of them is a guitar, an instrument important to Ilya that he's unable to play in his current state. Indica wants to leave the guitar behind, and they do, but it's notable that it's even a question to begin with. A guitar isn't needed in a survival situation, much less a guitar one character doesn't know how to play and the other can't play. Yet this guitar has meaning. Keeping the guitar signifies a belief that Ilya's arm will be healed, a belief that is keeping him alive through all of this hardship. Literally, it's just some wood and some strings. It's of no use to them, but it does have meaning. Ilya has given it meaning. This idea is taken to a further extreme in another sequence where the voice speaking to Indica grows louder and impossible to ignore. The world itself breaks apart around her. The sneers from this sinister voice are given power. But when she recites a prayer, that voice vanishes and the world congeals together once again. Literally speaking, both parties' words are simply words, yet these words have the power to alter the environment around her. Is this scene all in Indica's head? Possibly, but it certainly feels real when the sky turns red and the world collapses around her. The words have power because Indica believes they have power. The second time this happens is right after Indica opens the letter she was ordered to deliver. As she climbs up a seemingly infinite staircase, she contemplates if she should open it or not. The voice in her head taunts her. How much of a sin is it to open a letter that isn't yours? Is it worse to open the letter or burn the letter? If opening a letter and murder are both sins, is one sin worse than another? Well, how much worse? If one loses 1,000 letters, is it as much of a sin as killing someone? If opening a letter is a 1-point penalty, could one gain 20 points by lighting a candle to net 19 points? Well, who decided that lighting a candle is worth that many points? Who decides that a Goomba's life is worth 1/10 of a super mushroom? Indica is tricky like that. It wrestles with the question of what is good and bad, what is moral and immoral, what is holy and unholy. The game sends a clear message about questioning power structures, doubting ingrained beliefs, and embracing one's own agency. Yet certain mechanics contradict that. If praying is just words, why does it have the power to move mountains? If lighting a candle does nothing, why do I get this shiny shape and a satisfying sound? When it comes to the game's imagery, it's not clear what is supposed to be taken literally. There's a big scary dog creature in one sequence. Indica doesn't seem scared of it at first, yet Ilya's terrified. It can devour both of them, so it's supposed to be a monster, right? Or is this just how she perceives this animal? The game offers no answers. As the duo ventures into a fish processing plant, the imagery literally grows. When they enter, they see standard-sized fish, yet the environment they're in... what exactly is this place supposed to be? As they continue further, the fish grow to be gigantic, larger than whales even. Is this supposed to be literal, or is this her subjective view of the environment? As far as the game is concerned, the fish are actually that big. The dog is a chaotic mass of noise and teeth. These things are presented like this, and they will never change. Indica never snaps back to reality. In a way, her perspective has given these things power. Even if it is just a wild dog and a bigger-than-average fish, Indica's belief that they are that extreme makes them real from her perspective. Midway through the fish factory, Indica and Ilya fall into a vat of water. They don't drown, thankfully, but they now run the risk of freezing to death. They find a warm corner of the factory. Ilya removes his waterlogged clothes and sets them close to a fire. Indica reluctantly does the same. This scene makes something else literal, the voice that has been taunting her. The shadow of the devil is seen pulling Indica's garment off of her. The voice isn't just a voice anymore. As their clothes dry, they sit on opposite sides of the room and talk. Indica mentions how back at the convent she was required to wear her head covering at all times, even while asleep. She seems relieved to have an excuse to not wear it. Even though both characters are naked, the most revealing thing in this scene is this shot, a clear view of Indica's face glowing in the light of the fire. She's almost unrecognizable. We see her not as a nun, but as her own self. How much meaning did we assign her outfit? Were we not seeing the real her? After this scene, the two of them continue on their way. Indica continues to cover her head despite her previous remarks. Even though it's just the two of them in this fish factory, it's what signifies Indica as a nun. Yet she doesn't seem to feel like a nun. Indica is filled with doubts. Her head is filled with nefarious voices. Still, she needs some sort of framework to work within. She needs some sort of goal to strive toward. She needs a score to chase. In the first leg of the game, candles are easy to come by. Exploring each area will drip feed the player precious points. But as the game progresses, there are fewer candles to light, fewer artifacts to find. It becomes harder to grow Indica's faith score, but it always sits in the corner, a constant reminder of how well she's doing. The points mechanic slides into the background. Instead, Indica has to find her own things that fulfill her, not as a nun, but as her own person. There's a brief scene as the two of them leave the fish factory. Ilya has some items stashed away. He finds them and shows them to Indica. They're finger puppets from when he was a kid. They put them on their hands and sing. It's a moment of tenderness in an otherwise bleak and brutal story. I can't help but wonder what Ilya sees in this scene. If this sequence were from his perspective, would these puppets come to life and sing and dance across the rooftop? We'll never know. For this scene is from Indica's perspective, a character who has no attachment to these puppets. To her, they're just toys. Yet the two of them gain something from them. Through these puppets, they grow closer together. They can see each other not as a nun and a convict, but as two unlikely companions. These puppets have meaning because they gave them meaning. No points were deducted for removing her head covering. No points were earned by sharing a moment of comfort on the rooftop. Anyone who would have the authority to assign these actions point values isn't there to award or deduct them. Why should the rules for modesty apply when one's survival takes priority? There are rewards for performing labor and rituals, but there aren't rewards for sharing moments of impromptu joy. Without a score to measure oneself, how do we know that we're doing the right thing? Are we on the path that is best for us? Every action in Indica that's quantified is tied to a path that has been set out for her, a path set in stone by the power structures in her society. In a way, it's sort of comforting to know what to do, to know what is good and what is bad. But when those ways of measuring morality disappear, it can be disorienting, scary even. Everything should be quantified, right? It's especially pervasive in an age where everything is driven by numbers. I can check my bank account right now and it will tell me how much money I'm worth. I can get a blood test and it will tell me how healthy I am. Am I healthier and richer than my friends, or are they healthier and richer than me? We can check streaming services to prove that this musician is more popular than that musician. This game has to be better because it got a higher critical score than that game. This artwork sold for this much money, so it must be more prestigious, I guess. Everything can be explained by a number, and every number has a higher number behind it. On the Game Boy edition of Tetris, stacking the blocks will result in a higher score. The points signify the player's skill, yet this version of Tetris is missing something rather important: a battery save. After turning the system off, those high scores are gone forever. If there's no way to track one's score across several days, why keep track of the score to begin with? If there's no way to compare my high scores to yours, what's the point of racking up points? Does that render the points in this version of Tetris pointless too? What's the point of stacking the blocks well if the evidence of doing so is wiped away? Why do anything if there's no tangible reward? The only thing Game Boy, Tetris, Super Mario Bros., and Indica have in common is their useless points, but those score counters do represent things. They do encourage certain behaviors. Tetris encourages risk-taking, letting the block stack higher to clear more rows at a time. Mario creates a hierarchy of behaviors and collectibles, and Indica shows which actions are holy and which are not. It's to show who is in charge, who makes the rules that she must follow. But what happens if those rules aren't followed? What does it mean to ignore the path laid out ahead of you, to ignore what you have been told is right and wrong? What happens when you define your own versions of good and evil? How can you know that you're right? Indica carries a bold statement, one that criticizes not only organized religion, but also makes the player question the very nature of institutional hierarchy. The things that gain points are given meaning, but who put that meaning there to begin with? Do they have our best interests in mind? Towards the end of the game, Indica can enter a little house on this side street while exploring. It's a completely optional area. In it, she finds yet another candle, so naturally one would light it, hoping to raise their score slightly higher. but nothing happens. Every candle in the game thus far has served some greater purpose. They were at memorials or they were in front of icons, but this candle is in front of a picture of Karl Marx. This candle isn't a part of worship. It's there to light up a room. No points appear. Her score stays stagnant. This candle is just a candle. Indica was one of many fantastic games released in 2024. Over on the Patreon, you can find exclusive videos on some other great games from that year, like Mouthwashing, Neva, and Imio the Smiling Man. Joining the Patreon will get you access to over 20 exclusive videos like those, along with new episodes that are early, uncensored, and ad-free. Thanks for your support.